Good afternoon. Welcome to the Infinity Fast Forward webinar series. Appreciate you all taking some time to join us today. My name's Steve Kessler, and I'm going to host the program this afternoon. Our topic today is about return to duty testing guidelines. Obviously, the Drug Clearinghouse, which came to be back in 2020, I think has been put there for the right reasons to take some drivers with problems off the road and help those that have problems get back to work. But there's often some confusion and issues as it relates to that process that you have to go through. So we've got our expert on here today to kind of walk us through some of that. Couple of housekeeping things, and then I'll introduce our guests. First of all, everybody that's on is muted, so we can't hear you. So if you'd like to interact with us and make a comment, you can do that with the chat feature that's there, or the Q&A box. You can type in a question there if you'd like. So why don't y'all just jump on the chat, tell us who you are and where you're from and what company you're with, so we kind of have an idea who's out there today. So while y'all are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce, first of all, my co-host, Mark Ray. Those of you that join our webinars frequently see Mark on with me just about all of our webinars. Mark's a veteran of the trucking industry for, 35 years or more, I think, Mark. Does a lot of consulting with a lot of different groups around the country. Expert witness in some of the trucking lawsuits, so brings a great background to our program. Mark, what do you think about our topic today?
Well, it's a very important topic. There's a lot of confusion on what is required for the return to duty, and certainly if there's pros and cons, and I know our friend Alan is going to go over those with us. A lot of people just don't do it at all. I don't know if that's a good idea, but we'll go over the pros and cons. And the other thing is, this is a topic that you want to be able to make sure your drivers absolutely understand what the guidelines are and what their responsibilities are. And the way to do that, of course, is through some custom content or some content that you can assign through this system to make sure they understand their responsibilities for the return to duty. So looking forward to Alan's an absolute expert in this industry for years, very well respected. I'm really looking forward to today's presentation.
Thanks, Mark. Let me go ahead and introduce Alan Teichelman. Alan brings more than 25 years of experience in the drug and alcohol testing business. Alan started his career back in 1991 as general manager at Attest Drug Testing in Fort Worth, Texas. There he focused on improving processes, customer satisfaction, and profitability through acquisitions and organic growth. In 2014, he joined Fleet Screen, that was later acquired by DISA, I think is how you say it, Global Solutions, as a national account manager. Working for Fleet Screen provided the opportunity to offer clients more services such as post-accident assistance, personalized consulting, advising on company policies, and DOT regulations. In October 2022, Alan joined CMI Drug Testing as their national sales manager, working with CMI sales staff and continuing to provide assistance to CMI drug testing clients. So without any further delay, Alan, I'm going to turn the program over to you, sir.
Thank you, Steve and Mark. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you again. CMI Drug Testing is a nationwide company. Again, we have customers all over the U.S., and we are located, the corporate office in San Antonio, and I'm in the Fort Worth office. Today, return to do drug testing. We're going to talk about the guidelines and how you do that, but there's some, as Mark mentioned, there's some pros and cons to it, and how we get to that point where you're decided to do a return to duty test on one of your drivers. I know in today's world that we are always looking for drivers with DOT, and they're hard to come by, and so again, your decision after you have to make based on your employee handbook, do you do a zero tolerance or you do second chance? And doing a second chance, you give the opportunity now to, okay, I'm gonna give that driver a second chance. He did not pass the drug or alcohol test, and so we're gonna do the return to duty. But first off, next page, Mark, or Steve, excuse me, to the table of contents. I want to briefly, these are things we're going to discuss besides just return to duty. We're going to discuss the new things that happen with the medical card, English language, and fentanyl. So Mark, Steve, the next one, please. The purpose of the return to duty is there's several reasons why an individual fails a drug test or alcohol test. One is it says refusal. It's not just a refusal to say, okay, I'm not going to take this drug test. A refusal can be a simple situation as I didn't give enough urine specimen. I decided that, you know, I couldn't go to the restroom. And I needed to do the 45 milliliters which is sufficient amount to do the drug test. So based on that, you know, the refusal can happen. Second is if the 3-hour window, you got 3 hours to do a drug test. So Mark, next, Steve, next one, please. When a driver fails a drug test, a couple things kick in, and this again is based on your employee handbook and your discussion with your driver and a document that you haven't signed that says what the next steps are going to take. So again, generally when you, obviously when everybody knows this, when the driver fails the drug or alcohol test, then they have to be immediately removed from their safety sensitive position, which means if they're driving a truck and you're in a Texas company, but he's in Missouri, you've got to go get that truck. He's got to stop driving. And so from that point, you need to be aware of how you do your quarterly testing. Every TPA gives you a list of drivers that need to be tested on a quarterly basis. And it's best, if you can, to obviously do them when they're in the when you're at your home base and not on the road. But again, sometimes you have a post-accident and you have to do the test there. Next slide, Mark. Steve, excuse me. Next slide. Again, the refusal situation is it could happen with several reasons. One is what happens at 3 hours. Remember now, everybody knows that the driver has 3 hours to give a urine specimen. Obviously, the breath test can be done immediately, but 3 hours to give us the amount of 45 milliliters of urine to complete the drug test. If the driver during that time period does not give the 45 milliliters, then it's up to the collection person to then stop the test. Also, you can give the driver up to 40 ounces of fluid to do that, to help them with that. But again, what you're running into a situation where that you're leaving it up to the collection site to make a hard, fast rule. This actually happened last month with I've had 2 calls within the last month, a potential customer and a current customer, that one of their real good drivers, and they speak highly of them and they didn't want to lose them, couldn't go to the restroom. And the driver wanted to come back the next day. And the hard, fast rule is no. Once that 3 hours are up, then the situation kicks in that, you know, you couldn't give enough for it. It can be considered a refusal to give a drug test. The referral then becomes, you can put on the documentation or you can document it as called a shy bladder. And then the problem kicks in now is that driver, because they couldn't give a specimen, they need to be removed from safety sensitive position, but they have to 5 days now to go to their doctor and a licensed physician and get a medical reason why they couldn't give a urine specimen. That's why I suggest you remove them. They get removed from the safety sensitive position because I hate to say it, majority of the time, the driver just doesn't go get the paperwork. I mean, he might go to a doctor and and the doctor might help him out and say, okay, yes, there was a medical reason for that, for not giving a urine specimen. And then once that doctor provides that documentation, then then you have to provide it to your MRO, your medical review officer. It's his decision then to decide whether, okay, we're going to retest him, or it was a refusal and there's no test, and it's now a positive test result. The other part of that is that when you're doing a test like this, the urine can come back. Next slide, please. The urine can come back as a diluted specimen. Now, a diluted specimen is going to be a situation where that's why it's only give 40 milliliters of water to drink, because after a while, you don't want that specimen diluted where again, the test result will come back and tell the doctor, the MRO doctor, what percentage of that was diluted. Again, based on that is if the accretion concentration is equal or less than 2 milligrams, then it can be considered a positive test. Now the doctor can then immediately say, okay, you had a medical reason, it was diluted, but I don't like it was diluted, so we're going to make you do another test. You have to immediately send the driver back to the clinic, and it has to be observed collection from obviously the same sex as the driver. So again, if it's a diluted test and it's positive, it's a positive test. If it's diluted and it was a negative test, then that kicks in where the MRO has to decide, looking at the test results, the concentration, and decide, okay, I'm going to agree that it was overactive with too much water he drank, or could other reasons. We'll give him another test. Next slide.
Alan, back to the shy bladder. Is the clinic responsibility for making that declaration for a shy bladder?
Yes, sir. It is. They have to determine, and you've got clinics both sides of the spectrum that are easygoing, and it says 40, they'll let it go. But it's really the normal amount you need because of the testing, how it tests as test. And then on DOT, there's a separate sample. They split up, that it has to be that 45. But yes, the clinic will decide at that time, after that 3-hour period, did I get the specimen enough to do the drug test? And yeah, thank you for that. I want to mention earlier, ask questions as we go along. Mark, relate to Steve or Mark those questions, and I'll ask him as we go. But again, the refusal situation, because that diluted, is your driver cannot drive until he comes back for a non-negative test. Next slide, please. So we're going back to the last time I did a webinar. This is one thing we discussed, what's changed with the clearinghouse on how they handle commercial driver's license. So back in November of last year, the return to duty didn't change, the process didn't change, but the status changed. It used to be that in the past, they would not give a prohibitive status. Now, once the driver has now refused the test, he is downgraded and his driver's license is revoked. So he's now prohibited status. He can no longer do any commercial driving until the return to duty test is completed. So again, the clearinghouse states it also that the clearinghouse will notify the state drivers, like the state of Texas or Missouri or Florida will know some, and the state drivers agencies will have to document and pull that license and state on their records that it's been downgraded and revoke his driver's license until he does return to duty test. So this is important that you know that, again, refusal, non-negative tests, he is now downgraded, and whatever reason might be, he has now to go into the return to duty process if that you chose to do. Next slide. The steps for doing this are pretty straightforward. Your TPA your TPA will provide you with a list of certified SAP certified abuse professionals. And that's one thing your TPA should do for your third administrator, like fleets, like we do with CMI. We have a list of doctors we work with, and the company will make a suggestion to us, and we'll reach out to the driver, or driver reach out to us, and we'll provide him a list of those SAP professionals. The SAP professional has to do evaluation. And based on that evaluation, on the test result, talking to the driver, he'll make a recommendation on what's going to happen next. I have dealt with companies over the years that they have the program where they have a second chance, and they've drug tested those drivers up to 5 years. So again, the first year, the minimum is going to be at least 6 drug tests during that first year, and they all have to be negative. But what happens next is, once he does evaluation, the driver will go back in and give another drug test. If that drug test urine specimen comes back negative, then he can go into the system of the testing program, where he can get now the doctor will notify the clearinghouse, and he's changed from prohibitive to non-prohibitive. So now he can start driving once he passes that next test for the return to duty. But now the return to duty process kicks in, that now we've got to do at least a minimum of 6 tests during the first year, and then it could go up to 5 years. I've had
Alan, if a driver is at that point and we're about to start these 6 tests to follow up, what happens if they fail one of those 6?
Then he's immediately, then the second chance is gone. He's immediately removed, and he's based on that, he's terminated. Now, again, I've dealt with companies in the Northeast that have, and again, I'm not saying this anything different bad about it, that their drivers are part of a union, and the union can dictate based on their agreement with the company, okay, he failed the test, he can still stay on, and we're going to do another test and start all over. Again, your situation is your policy, your employee policy. You have to make a decision. Okay, I'm going to give 0 tolerance, or I'm going to give second chance. And second chance, then this needs to be written out in your employee handbook, that you're subject to additional testing that will be determined by the SAP. And if you fail any of those tests, then your employment is terminated. And so, yes, he's immediately terminated and removed from safety sensitive position. And then you notify the clearinghouse gets notified again that he's failed another drug test, and he's now prohibited from driving.
Is that
is the return is the return follow-up the same for everybody in your organization, or can it be unique to an individual?
Great question. It's unique to that individual. I mean, based on, again, I'm just using examples. I'm from Texas. I drove to Colorado. I had, it's legal for recreational marijuana. I did something there and I came back home, and on Monday, I came back Sunday and Monday, you tested me, and I can convince the substance abuse professional that's what happened. He might just say, okay, it's, 1 test or 6 tests or whatever for the year. But again, if he feels like you're a chronic user, then that 5 years could kick in. Again, the situation kicked in, as I mentioned earlier, with one of our customers. He called, he said, Alan, I feel great about this guy. I'm not sure what happened. I don't think he has anything wrong with him. He just can't go to the restroom. Well, unfortunately, because of that time frame of that 3 hours, the test is now called refusal, because he couldn't give an adequate urine specimen, and now he has to go see a SAP after the MRI, your MRI for your company, review the test result. It's a non-negative, then he has to go do it anyway, no matter if he's a great employee, never had an issue with the company 20 years. These all kick in. It's just, it is a hard, fast set rule, but the answer to your question is, it varies. I've had them again from one test every 2 months to then 2 tests and then up to 5 years. So yes, but they are all unannounced. Again, the other part of this question is, or the answer to this, what your handbook here is, okay, I'm going to give this guy a second chance. That the SAP came back and says he's got to do a test over 2 years. Who's paying for those additional tests? Under the current guidelines, you got an employee that does a test, you're going to pay for it yourself. All the guidelines from DOT says, and it's very vague. It just says that the company is responsible for setting up that initial test, and it does not say who pays for what. So then your situation is, again, your employee handbook needs to say, okay, we're going to do a second chance. You're responsible for every test after that first one. We'll pay for the initial return to duty to get you back on the trucking as an eligible driver. But again, you can but any other test that the SAP requires of you, you're paying for it. It comes out of your pocket and we'll deduct it from your paycheck. Or we're going to pay for all of them. I have customers doing it both ways. I know this company had a union I work with up in the state of New York, the company paid for all of them because it was in their agreement with their drivers union. Okay, if this happens, we're going to do this.
What they do.
So again, next slide, please.
Hey, Alan, a couple of questions here before we move on.
Sure.
Eric had a question. It says, is a negative dilute still a negative result if the MRO doesn't suspect anything?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's up to the MRO to make that final decision. He'll look at the test results and back to that, the concentration, accretion, to decide whether the decisions made there. We actually, when we set up with CMI, we actually asked that question on a diluted thing. How do you want to handle diluted, test result? We have several MROs that work for us, and based on what you state us is how we're going to handle that to you. So again, if the MRI says, okay, it was diluted, excuse me, but it wasn't ample enough to warrant my concerns, then it's a non-negative test. But again, it has to go through the assessment of the MRO making a decision. Again, the MRO says, no, I'm not going to authorize this as a negative test, then the SAP situation kicks in.
Okay, we have another question here. Somebody's asking, what about for B1 drivers?
It applies.
B1 are the international drivers.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's the same.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, once you cross into the United States, if you're an international driver in the United States, you're in the DOT guidelines. Those rules apply to everybody, all
So it's
across the board the
process.
same.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Very good. So you ready for the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Oops.
Well, I actually, next slide, because I started talking ahead of my slides. Let's go one more, please.
One more after this?
Yeah, because I've talked ahead of myself.
Okay,
There.
that's all right.
Again, the collection every time on a return to duty test on a specimen has to be an observed test. So again, you're looking at a process where you've got to use a clinic that obviously has a male and female because it's part of the collection process that has to be observed. So again, unfortunately, because when you fail a drug test, you're okay situations falls away. You're now subject to, okay, I don't trust you at all. We're gonna observe test. So again, that situation again, for the company, you've got to make sure that you send a driver to a collection site that has both a male and female collector to do that urine specimen. Again, a couple of things up to the employer's responsibility. Once that negative return to duty test has been done, it's up to the employer to to, by the third business day, to report that result to the clearinghouse. And again, the negative test result, they can resume their normal safety sensitive positions as driving. So again, there's a lot hanging on that one test, that return to duty test. So again, once that's passed, then the company has to report that as a negative test result, and then you're in turn, the process starts regarding based on the recommendation of your SAP. Next slide, please.
Right. Another quick question. The return to duty test, obviously, you said they have to let the clearinghouse know by the third business day. But your next slide says once a drug negative is received, do they have to verify that through the clearinghouse that that's then posted there?
No,
Or
sir. No.
No?
Your job is to return him to duty and notify him. You have 3 days to notify him. Obviously,
you're
I
putting
would,
them back.
that would be something I would jump on immediately and get done as quick
Right.
as possible.
For sure.
Because because what's going to happen next is that, your driver decides he wants to go someplace else after a week.
Yeah.
And it better be a non-negative test result for that return to duty. So yes, it's they can still start driving, but you've got 3 days to get that result to them.
Perfect.
Okay, next slide.
Yes, sir.
Here, this situation applies, okay, I want to hire somebody, and this is the other question I have from a potential customer that I'm trying to get their business. The situation came that, Alan, I got this driver I really like, but I want to hire him, but now he tells me he tested negative for a test result, and he's now in a program with a SAP. And what do I do? Well, again, you have to take over those. The first thing you have to do is take over those testing. You can hire the gentleman or the lady or husband, man, whatever you want. You can hire them, but there's two things that happen. When you hire a new employee, there is a pre-employment test, and then you've got to do the return to duty test. If you do it at the same time, when you at SAP, the return to duty test supersedes the pre-employment. So you don't have to do two tests. Again, and I failed to mention this earlier, anytime a driver leaves your testing program for 30 days, he's like a new employee. So that's where this kicks in. So I'm gonna hire my guy back, but he's been gone 30 days. Well, DOT says you got to do a pre-employment drug test because he's been gone for 30 days of your program. Well, and also he's in a drug testing program. Well, you can't classify the next test as a pre-employment. You have to mark it as a return to duty test, and that supersedes any pre-employment. So you can use it as a pre-employment. He was negative and didn't fail the test, but it's got to be noted as a return to duty test.
And that has
So
to be
that's why it's so important that you work with your TPA. Now, this is for companies who have a DER or HR handles this, but what if the owner operator and he fails the test? All this thing kicks in the same thing, but now you work with the TPA. The TPA will be in charge of working with the SAP and professional, and will in turn dictate when, based on, and the something professional, he will give you exact dates. He'll say, I want it done on September 28th. And I want it on October 1st and October 15th. He'll give you exact dates he wants it done. And based on that, we'll notify the owner operator, hey, you're under this program. It's time for you to go and do a drug test. And again, it's a little different situation with owner operators, but the same program kicks in, except now the TPA is involved, the consortium. But again, that 30 days kicks in. If you remember 30 days, it doesn't matter whether you pass the test, flunk the test, he takes administrative leave. I'm going to go on a vacation for 30 days, or 35 days. I'm going to be leaving that return to duty. I mean, excuse me, the pre-employment test has to be completed after, if it's not 30 days. Next slide, please. This is kind of highlight we just did. One more, please. This is kind of summary of what we just did. These questions here is summary of what we did is, again, a question: employer may give the driver a single drug test to meet the requirements, but again, it's categorized as that it's a pre-employment drug test or it's return to duty. You need to remember that return to duty is superseded by the over the pre-employment drug test. Again, a driver flunks a test. He's got to remove from the program immediately, and your decision in based on your employee handbook. Again, I think everybody knows this, and we all probably done it. Employee handbook needs to be signed, a document signed that they discuss this with their employee at all these rules, that we have a zero tolerance or return to duty. Next question, next slide. Okay, I guess first off, any questions about the return to duty on how that works?
I had one other question. If a driver changes jobs, he's in the program and he's gotten 2 of his 6 done, and he changes jobs. Does he have to keep does he take on the new MRO for the new company, or does he continue to use the pre-existing MRO to make sure everything's done right?
Sure. 2 things. He uses the new MRO, but he stays with the substance professional, SAP professional. The new company will take on those additional 4 tests, part of it, and the new MRO with the new company will be the person monitoring that, because again, the records now show everything's based on the company's DOT number. So, you change companies was not a problem to change companies. And it's not a problem to hire somebody who's in the program. I know you're still staying with that, the current SAP, and you're still meeting those guidelines that he set forward, but the new MRO will be looking at the test results. And obviously so will the SAP.
Yeah, and the new MRO can get into the clearinghouse and make a confirmation of what's been done and what needs to be done.
Correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, a couple things that have happened within the last couple of weeks or month that I did want to bring up regarding since we went over the return to duty. Again, a summarize the return to duty is the driver fails the drug test. He has to now go to if you want to keep the driver, he has to go to a substance abuse professional. That professional will do the evaluation, will determine, okay, he needs 1 test or a dozen tests, and who pays for those tests. And again, your situation is this all needs to be in your employee handbook, how you're going to handle it, and the driver needs to sign off of it before you bring him on as your current driver. Now, a couple of things that have happened regarding English language requirements and medical cards that I'd like to briefly discuss. A couple of weeks ago, it's always been a requirement of the DOT for English language requirements that you know English to be a truck driver in the United States, to have a commercial driver's license. But now, what's changed based on President Trump's executive order, it's now a out of service violation. So now if you've got a driver who does not speak English or whatever reason you've hired it doesn't speak English or can read English, and he stopped, then the DOT, the Highway Patrol will again, stopping it will again make this his determination. He can't speak English. It's out of service violation. That truck is stopped right there. So you have to go get that truck, wherever that truck might be, and bring it in. Just briefly, there's some statistics here that looks like that, you know, the last 2 years, there's the database from FMCSA that says there have been over 15,000 violations. Now those violations are now out of service violations and stops the truck wherever they are. Which I was at the bottom of the page, it talks about that 16% of those drivers had Texas driver's license. Then California was next with 9.8, and obviously then Illinois, New Jersey, and Florida were behind with 7.5. So again, it's out there. And so if you've got a driver that does not speak English, you know, my suggestion is, the recommendation is you make this, you able to teach him English or whatever you want to do if you want to keep him. I'm not saying he's not a great driver, but based on this executive order, that truck's going to be sidelined wherever it is, and on the side of the highway, he can go get it because he can't speak English. The next slide, and the next slide, go to the medical cards, because I discussed both of them. One more and one more. So here, this has happened recently. A backup one, I'm sorry. There's a medical card. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. This happened recently. Your driver no longer needs to carry with him a medical card. I recommend that you still do that just for the driver's protection, but because there's so much fraud going on, they feel like with the examination and these are not being done properly, is that now it's all electronic. So as of June 23rd, the medical card is now electronically, it's sent into the FMCSA National Register. That's where the highway patrols or the state agencies will be, local police will be checking to make sure it's there. So again, the last sentence makes it very clear. The doctor, the medical examiner did that. He has to submit that result, but he has 1 day, basically midnight of the calendar today, to do that. So again, the driver can carry the medical card if he wants to, but they're not looking at it. They're looking now at the database. So be sure that, again, your driver's aware that the database now has their card. So if you're behind and the medical card is not up to date, it's going to be in the highway patrol is going to check, or the state agency is going to check that national register, and it's going to show his medical card is lapsed. Next slide, please. This is just something that just a thing that I just threw in here because I think it's important that you to save time when your drivers go to get their medical exam. These 3 things. Don't have them go show up and, oh, I can't do that, can't complete the result because the medical exam because I forgot something. He needs his eyeglasses, prescription, list of medicines that he takes, and a clearance from doctors that say, okay, you can do this. He has a heart condition, but it's not sufficient that he shouldn't be driving, or whatever condition he might have that says that might pop up. So again, it's nothing except that I'm saying is, please tell your drivers that when they go into the get their medical card, and they have to do that medical card every year, these are things you need to bring with it. Next slide. This came about, I guess this is like 3 weeks ago, a NPRM, notice of proposed rulemaking. It hasn't been set a date yet. I assume it's going to happen pretty quickly, we'll notify everybody about it. But fentanyl now will be in the future, will be added to the DOT 10 panel. So, or 5 panel scale, I put 5, it's the 5 panel, wrong number there. Anyway, it's going to be added to the testing process. We don't have a date yet, but obviously your TPA will notify you once that is included in there. It will add it to the drug test, and that just give us notice that it's going to happen sometime in the future. It hasn't been done yet for the DOT, but again, it's going to happen. The next slide is just a summary of how powerful fentanyl is. I think everybody's aware of that, but again, my goodness, it's, you know, overdoses, deaths since 21 have been over 100,000. So just briefly read that, but again, fentanyl is a terrible drug that, again, we all are hearing about it. And I'm so surprised that the FMCSA is not added to the drug test already, but it hasn't done that yet. So, but again, it will be coming in the future.
Alan, do you know how long fentanyl will stay in your system?
Um, I apologize. I don't know offhand. There's different ones for hair and for urine, but I don't know offhand. I know it's I think it's 3 to 5 days, but I apologize. I did not look that up before I got on this slide. But anyway, that is the presentation, and I will hopefully maybe if anybody have any questions about what we went over, I'm open for some questions. I know it went pretty fast, but
No, that's great, Alan. There are a couple of questions here. So how do we handle drivers on SAP? Whoops, my thing's jumped down, but has not completed the program, worked for another employer that did not keep up with this, and now I want to hire. What are my next steps? So somebody
Well,
hasn't completed the process and they worked for another
sure.
company that didn't keep up with it.
Sure. Again, the TPAs, you're going to have to reach out to the SAP professional, the SAP, and discuss what has not been done and make up any tests that have not been completed. So it's going to fall back on you. You want this driver, you like this driver, I think it's a good driver, then you're going to have to be responsible for making up the missed test. And what basically is working with the SAP, he will reschedule the test. It'd probably be the same number of tests if he missed some, but he'll reschedule them. But it shouldn't have never gotten that far. If the company didn't take up and the SAP didn't keep track of those tests, then he's actually failed the test. And so I'm curious what the clearinghouse will say regarding the register about what his status is. Like obviously when you register with the clearinghouse and you have to check the clearinghouse, then that I'm curious it's going to say, is it non-prohibitive or prohibitive? Because that should have been a red flag. He didn't do all his testing, then it should be a call. But you have to work with the SAP and the doctor, and he'll redo them or decide just do an evaluation, decide what to go on.
Yeah.
I saw at the
Seems
bottom
like-
there that one of the individuals said 72 hours for fentanyl. I thought that what it was, but I said 3 to 5 days, but 72 hours. So thank you for saying that, please.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not sure this is in your wheelhouse or not, Alan, but somebody has asked, does the electronic medical card apply to B1 drivers, international drivers?
Yes.
Yes.
Same thing. Everything applies to international drivers, applies to United States drivers. There's no difference.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think you've answered the questions that have popped up so far. Mark, do you have any other comments? This is great information, Alan. I think, it's valuable to go through this again to make sure everybody's clear on what they need to do and what they're responsible for. And I think one of the main things I took away from it is you've got to make this very clear and educate your drivers about what this is. It needs to be in their handbook. You need to provide some training so they understand what the clearinghouse is, and why it's important to follow all the steps. But they need to know what causes them to fail, and they need to know what these processes are going to be. Maybe that by itself will keep some people from taking something that they shouldn't, so to speak.
Sure. Well, again, that company I guess it's been a month ago, loves this driver. Thinks the world of him. He's been with them 15 years, and he couldn't give enough urine specimen to give for a urine test. He had to, so all that kicks in, and they wanted to keep him. So, you know, again, your situation is, they need to know the consequences of not being able to give a urine specimen.
Excellent.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to just add on to that is it's very specific, obviously, and very well documented. But guess what? Our plaintiffs' attorneys know that too, and they will certainly look for mistakes that are being made. If you don't go exactly by in the event of a wreck and a lawsuit, they know the rules better than we do most of the time. So I would very much encourage you to reach out to Alan for his contact, as well as developing your own content to educate your drivers on the best thing, of course, is not to have them flunk a drunk screen, but how to conduct yourself when you are in the program.
Also, bottom there, somebody asked, does the driver get a written copy? Yes. The SAP will provide them a copy of the program. It won't list when the drug test will be or the alcohol test will be. Again, this applies also to alcohol too. They could go do, you know, 6 breath tests instead of alcohol tests if they. But again, they will get a summary from what the SAP has recommended. And it probably will say something like over a 1-year time period or 2-year time period or 5-year, whatever it is, but it won't give them the dates. You just know you're going to be subject to 6 additional tests or 11 additional tests or 1.
I also know at one time there was a little delay in the clearinghouse updating the prohibited and non-prohibited. Have they caught up? Have you had any complaints on that, or is the clearinghouse
I haven't got
any
any that? You're correct, but recently I haven't got any complaints. So I'm based on no information they're caught up, but again, I've had situations they're caught up and one day they were down. So, but again, as far as I know, based on the feedback, they're pretty well caught up or are caught up.
Very good. Well, Alan, I don't see any other questions popping in. Mark, do you have any other questions? If not, I'll just thank you, Alan, for once again providing us with some great information. And, you know, if people need to reach out to you, do you have a phone number or email you want to pass on? Was that up at the very beginning of the slides?
Well, it was, but I didn't see it. But anyway, it's my no, it's not on there. There it is,
Yeah,
right
it's
there.
down on the bottom. It should be on the
Yeah.
screen now.
Yeah.
There's your phone number. I guess that's a mobile, and then Alan Teichelman at cmidrugtesting.com.
Yeah, I'm always available. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you and hope you earn your business, even if you're a non-customer. But again, we're always here to help you for our customers. You always have access to us.
Alan, thank you very much, sir. As things change in this business, if it relates to this, we'll be reaching out to you again. So once again, thank you for great information. And for all of you still out there, we'll be sending out a email with a link to the recording of this webinar. So if you had some folks that couldn't make the program today, they'll have a chance to watch the video again and hopefully gain the information that Alan presented today. So Alan, thank you, sir. Mark, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody out there, and hope you have a great rest of the day and be safe. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Steve and
you.
Mark. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.